So we're making good progress. So far, we've got our user table, which for me has 3 users in it, and the user is able to sign up or log in if they're not already logged in. So in this video, we're going to look at how to tap on the user in order to send that user a photo. And as far as we're concerned, sending a user a photo means uploading that photo to Pass. And then we'll do the receiving end of that in the next video. So if you haven't already, I strongly recommend you try and do this yourself. There's nothing new here, nothing that you haven't seen before. It may require going back and looking at some of the videos if you've forgotten how to do it. I'll give you a moment to pause the video and attempt that yourself. Okay, hope that went well. I've actually got the code from lecture 8.4 here, which, if you remember from the Instagram section, has these 2 methods in it. I'll just remind you how they work. Look at this bottom one first. So the pick image essentially creates a new view controller, which is a UI image picker controller, sets some values for that, and then displays that view controller for the user to pick an image. And then this method is called when the user has already picked their image. And for us to be able to use either of these, we need to add these 2 delegates to our view controller class, which will allow the view controller to control this new view controller, the image picker. So let's start by just popping those on there. And then we'll copy over these methods. I'll put them underneath our user array. There we go. Now we don't have a picked image here, so I'm going to get rid of that. This is where we're going to put our upload to Pass code. And then here we can leave most of it as it is. We do want to change camera to photo library because remember we can't use the camera in the simulator. Okay, so now we just need to add a bit of code so that when the user taps on another user on the table, then this pick image function is called. So let's do that down here with our table methods. So it's one of our table view functions, and the one that we want is did select row at index path. Now you have to be careful here because this is did deselect row at index path. Very easy to miss that. I've done that before. We want did select row at index path. There we go. So for now, let's just call our method, which was pick image. And the sender can just be self, the view controller. So let's run that, and we should now find that when we tap on a user, we can now select an image from the photo library. There we go. So if I click on Rob, there we go. So we just click OK. Now I've got no photos or videos here. You might have that problem with your installation as well. Some do come with defaults, some don't. So if you don't have any images there, what I would do is just go to any random website really. Let's go to Google and then long press on an image and then save image. And that will then put that into your photo library. Command-Shift-H gets you back to the home screen. And then let's try that again. So now we have that photo. Interestingly, I can now see other photos that were in the gallery before, but didn't seem to be coming up. Fine. So let's put that there, and great. So we've got our image selected. Obviously, nothing's happened with that yet. So let's now do our next bit of code to upload our image to Parse. And again, we'll go over to Parse because I'm trying to get you to do this in the way that you normally would. I wouldn't expect you to know all of the bits of code that you'll need all the time. So let's go to saving objects because that's what we want to do. Here we go. So that's the code that we're going to need. So let's call this an image to send. And we'll just give it a class name of image. And then we need a few things that we want to know about it. The first one is going to be the image itself, and we can get that using UI image JPEG representation. The image is the UI image that we returned from our date picker. The compression quality is a number between 0 and 1, 1 being full quality, 0 obviously having no information at all in there. So I'm just going to go for a random 0.5. You might want to play around with this. If this was going to be a serious app, you'd have to decide what level of image quality your servers could cope with and the user's bandwidth is going to be reasonable for. So remember, these are going to be mostly taken by, say, an iPhone camera, which returns images that are a few megabytes in size. That's pretty big. So if you want the image to be easily downloadable, say on a 3G connection, you might want to reduce that to something like 0.01 to make it much smaller. But I'll leave that up to you, and for now it doesn't really matter, so we'll just leave it as 0.5. Now, we're going to want the sender username, which is just the username of the current user. So that's just pfuser.current_user.username. And we're going to also want the recipient username, which is going to be something. Now that one, sorry, just before we do this, I'll change all of these. We're going to have to know which user the user picked on. So we're going to need some kind of setting here to save that bit of information. So I think the easiest way to deal with that is to have a variable, a global variable called something like active recipient, and we'll initially set it to 0. And then when the user taps on someone, we'll set active recipient to be equal to index path dot row. And then that will tell us who we're wanting to send this to at any one time. So recipient username is going to be user array, and then active recipient. Great. And now save in background is actually not in the latest versions of Parse, so the simplest way would be just save. That's what I'm going to do here. Obviously that won't tell the user that it's actually been sent. So when you're developing this app, you might want to use save in background with block. So that block there, and then in the block of code you could have an alert that says image sent, or display a label or something like that, however you want to do it really. But I'm just going to have save, because that will get us all the functionality we need. It might not be particularly user-friendly, but that's not really the aim of what we're doing here. So let's now run this, and we should be able to select an image, and then it will upload to Parse, and then we'll be able to check that it's there on the Parse backend. Here we go. So let's send one to Kirsten, and we'll send that nice waterfall image. Okay. So now let's jump over to our Parse backend and take a look and see if that's been saved. Okay, we now have an image class there, but it hasn't saved our data. Now let's find out why that is. Go back over to Xcode. Now we can see we've got a message here. The object is too large, so we're limited to 128 kilobytes on the standard Parse platform. Now I'm going to show you a nice way around that, and that is we're going to send an object with a new key, so we'll call it photo, and this time instead of sending the data directly, we're going to use a PF file. And the name of our file, it doesn't really matter what it is, we can just call it image.jpg. And the data, again, is going to come from our image. So we use the same as before, UI image JPEG representation. And the image is image. And we'll stick with 0.5. And the advantage of that is this now has a much bigger limit than the 128 kilobytes that we were stuck with before. Whether or not you'd want to use that is completely up to you, and it depends on the likely user's level of bandwidth and memory that they're going to have to hand. But let's just see what happens here. Looks like it all went fine. Let's go back over to Parse, and I think it's already picked it up. There it is. So image.jpg, and if we click on that, we can actually see the image. There it is. Fantastic. Great, so that's as far as I'm going to go in this video. So we now have the ability to send images to other people. Of course, they don't have the ability to receive them yet, so that's exactly what we'll work on in the next video. I'll see you there.